If you've ever wanted to design a board game, whether you have an idea and you're sort of beginning the process of turning it into a reality, but you don't really know what you're doing, or if you don't even have an idea, no idea where to begin, but you really want to sort of develop an idea into a board game, this series is going to walk you through the process that I use to take ideas, sort of generate them, and then turn them into functional games that people can play and enjoy. And so in this first video, we are going to answer the two very important questions that I think everyone needs to start with when designing a board game. And then we are going to sort of pitch a board game that we're going to be designing throughout this video series. And as we post videos here, I am going to actually be also publishing different versions of the game for people to playtest along with us, and we will sort of create this game from the idea that we're gonna pitch here today in this video. So the idea that I have is I've always wanted to design a game around spies or sort of secret agents. I think that would be a lot of fun. I have always loved sort of the idea of being a secret agent or a spy. I like games that sort of have that espionage element to them. And so I think the game that we're going to develop is going to be centered around that theme of being a spy or a secret agent. Now, there are two super important questions that you should start with when you are thinking about designing a game. And the first question is, what is the goal? What are players trying to accomplish that allows them to win the game? Is it getting a certain amount of points? Is it being the first to reach a certain place? Are they trying to collect something and it's the first player to collect those? Is it sort of, whatever it is, what is the goal of the game? And so for our game, right, we're spies, we're secret agents. When I think about secret agents and spies, I think, okay, perhaps they're trying to break in and you're trying to steal a certain piece of information, or you're trying to collect a certain piece of information. And then the second question that is very important to begin asking yourself early on and answer early on is, how do players achieve that goal? And so if our goal is to try and, let's say, collect a certain piece of information, well, how do they do that? And there's a number of ways. Perhaps it's that we need to, break into some sort of an embassy or something, and then we're gonna from there be able to access a vault and get some sort of information. Or maybe we need to identify a contact, right? Maybe there's some person out there in a sea of people and we need to figure out which one is our contact who has the information that we need. These are all interesting possibilities, and as designers, when we know what is the goal of the game, and if we can clearly iterate how our player is going to achieve that goal, then we can sort of begin to introduce all these other elements and really build out what will become the game. And so here's what I'm thinking for our game. I'm sort of picturing a grid of cards, and each card is a person, a character that has different strengths and different weaknesses. And on the ends of this grid, I am now envisioning that there's cards that are going to be the embassies. And so our goal, let's say, is to connect to these embassies, be the first player to connect to each of the 4 embassies. And if we do that, then we say that we have then gained access to these embassies and now have all the information that we need, and we then win the game. So now we know the goal is to connect to the embassies, be the first players to do that. So how do we do that? Well, what I'm envisioning is that there is this grid of these characters out there. And perhaps we start with one that is assigned randomly, and that is our starting point. And so perhaps all these characters, right, they have different professions or different kind of traits. Maybe there's the actress, there's the business tycoon, there's the butcher, the security guard, the chef, the widow, right? And so we get assigned one initially at random to be our secret starting point. And so, and I think everyone should have a notepad for this game where it has like a grid that matches the grid card layout. And so if I start with the widow, I look and I see, okay, here's where the widow is located, and I make a note of that. That's my starting point. From there, then, players need to build out their network by connecting with the cards that are connected to their starting person, building a path to these different embassies, all right? And I think that we would do that maybe with like I said, perhaps each card has strengths and weaknesses. So the widow, let's say, maybe she's fairly poor, right? And that's one of her attributes, is that like she's we can see her income level's pretty low, or maybe there's some sort of threshold, which is like, hey, if we wanted to bribe her with money, this is how much money we would need, right? Perhaps other people though, like the businessman, business tycoon, let's say he's got money, right? So we can't bribe him in order to add him to our network. Maybe there's something else though. Maybe it's that his security is fairly lax, and so perhaps we can like hack his systems and then blackmail him or something. Or maybe we can seduce him. Maybe seduction, maybe that's an option as well. I don't hate that. Like greed, fear, blackmail, and then seduction. There's three drivers right there, right? So those are maybe our starting three. Maybe we'll introduce more. And so you have to sort of collect funds, and I'm not sure how we're going to do that yet, but maybe we collect funds and like seduction points and hacking abilities, and then we can play those in order to grow out our network. Now, everyone would be able to see when we play, and so I think part of the thrill of the game would be trying to guess what connections your opponents are forming and then disrupt those. So maybe we can also eliminate cards from the grid. We put out an assassination. And so maybe if I think that you are using the business tycoon, that you formed a connection and that's your connection that's letting you go up towards one of these embassies, maybe I can remove the business tycoon by playing a card, he's out, and now if your network's severed, then you have to reform that connection. And so it's sort of, I think, perhaps a game where you're trying to track and figure out what other people are doing, disrupt their operations while building out your own network as quickly as you can. And whenever you recruit a player, whenever you recruit a card down there, so maybe if I spend X amount of cash in order to bribe the widow, everyone sees that I'm playing cash. They don't know who I'm bribing, but they know that I'm bribing one of the cards. And it could be a card that's easily bribed, or perhaps it's a card that's harder to bribe. Like maybe you can bribe the business tycoon, but maybe it's spending, you have to spend a lot of cash. And perhaps there's no maximum amount that you can spend. And so perhaps I could spend 5 cash cards on the widow, even though I need only like 1 cash card. And maybe that's just to try and throw people off my scent, to make them think that I'm bribing like the banker or the business tycoon when I'm not. I'm bribing the widow. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for mind games for sort of player-to-player interaction. So I'm sort of liking this idea of a grid, connecting to the embassies, and then playing cards to build out your grid and form these connections. So that's where we're going to start. We have answered now, just in 9 minutes here, we've answered what is the goal? Be the first player to connect to the embassies. How are you going to do that? By building out your network of informants and spies until you've reached those embassies. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to draft up a very rough sketch, couple of rough files that are going to be able to be printed by you and played. I'm going to print them, and then in our next video, I'm going to go through kind of playing a few rounds, and then we're going to talk about what issues we're immediately seeing with the game, what needs to be changed, thrown out, tweaked, added in order to improve it. I'm going to get those files up here at the time that I post the next video in a couple days here, and then you guys can download it, play it for yourselves, leave feedback, letting me know what you think the game is. If you have ideas that are popping out to you right now, let me know. Maybe I'll throw them in to that version that we can then all test together. So anyways, be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're interested in this journey, leave a comment letting me know what you think. And then I'll get to work on this, and we'll come back in the next video with a playable version. We'll play through it together and then talk about the next steps after that.